Welcome back. In this video, we will look at the CopyWith method. Now, before we do something in Visual Studio Code, I want to quickly show you something on the web. So if you go to api.flutter.dev and you go to Flutter Material Theme Data class, you'll get to this class called Theme Data. So this class uses the CopyWith method, and if we go right to the bottom somewhere, we will find that method there. So there's the operator, there's the methods, and you'll find a CopyWith method, and it says that this method creates a copy of this theme, but with the given fields replaced with the new values. Now let's look at this class quickly. You'll see that the theme data class has got some constructors, so they define the constructors there, and then they define the properties. So there's an accent color of type color, there's an accent color brightness of type brightness, and you can see that all of them are final, which means I cannot change values in this class. It's final as default. So if I go down, and you can see all of these different properties, and all of them are declared as final. Now look at all of them, and there we get to the methods again. So there is so many properties in this class, and what the CopyOf method now do, it creates a copy of this theme, but with the given fields replaced with the new values. So the functionality we get with the CopyWith method is that we create a copy of this class with all of its default values, and we can just go and change those that we actually want to change, not all of them. So you've seen how many there are, and even this CopyWith method, if I scroll there, you can see how many arguments it takes, because it needs to take in all of those different values that we are actually able to change. And I can go right to the end. It is really a lot of arguments that needs to be set if you wanted to create even a new object of this class. And this class called Theme Data class will actually be one of the first classes that you see on the very first page of your Flutter application when you get there, where you set the theme for your whole application. So this is a quite important class. And what I want to do now today is I want to create or recreate this class, but I will definitely not do every single one of those fields. And also I will have different values there, just to give you an idea on how this CopyWith method works and how we can actually use it in our own classes. So maybe you will not use it in your own class anyway, but you'll get to Flutter where you'll need to use the CopyOf or the CopyWith method. And then if you do not know what this CopyWith method do, then you could run into some problems. Right, so you've seen in that class that we had actually a few color types. So I've just decided to create an enum for color that's got red and blue and green and all of those values. And I'm creating an enum called brightness that will have dark and light. So we can use them as values inside of our class. So let's create the class. I'm just going to say class theme data. Now, obviously, I'm not going to create a similar class to the one online, but we will just handle some of the concepts there. So it will be class theme data, and let's say we will only have a few properties there that is in fact final, like we've seen there on the website. So I'm going to say color. Let's call it accent color. We will have a property for the accent color. We will also have a property for the background color. We will also have a property for the button color. And then we will also have a property for the brightness. And let's say we call it brightness. Right, and now because we're not using the underscore there as private here, we can create a theme data constructor. And your constructor, in order for this CopyWith method also to work, you need to have named arguments. If you do not have named arguments in there, then that list, if you're going to use positional arguments, then it's just not going to work if you want to use the CopyWith method, especially if you've got a lot of properties in there. Okay, so basically what I'm going to say is this dot accent color, and it's going to use the accent color. And then I'm going to say this dot background color, and it's going to set the background color. And this dot button color, and it's going to set the button color. And this dot brightness, and it's going to set the brightness. So you remember the previous video, we said that we can use the this keyword with the value, and that's the same as basically saying we will get in the accent color as a color type, and at the end we had that initializer to initialize the value. But because these are not private, there's a shorter way by just saying this.accent color, this.background color, this.button color, and this.brightness. And then we can also have the required keyword there, and that's why it's actually giving us this error now. We need to either say required there or give it a default value. And because this is final, it will tell us to give it a value. So let's initialize these instead of making them required. And also, if you make them required, and it's this very long list as we've seen there on the website, you will need to enter every single one of them, which is not good at all. So if I leave out the required keyword, it means that I can leave out some of these. But if I initialize them, it's fine, because then it will have a default value automatically. So I'm going to say for the first one, the accent color, let's say the accent color will be green. Let's go to a new line. And the background color will be color dot, let's say light blue. The button color will be color dot, let's say blue. And the brightness will be brightness dot light. Now let's save this quickly. Just make this a bit bigger. So what happened now in this class? We've got the properties accent color, background color, button color, brightness. And we created the constructor that accepts in the accent color, the background color, the button color, and the brightness as named arguments. But you will see we're not using the required keyword. And because we're not using the required keyword, we need to initialize these values. And because it's final, that makes sense. So we're finalizing them by giving them default values, and those default values we can then make a copy of later. It's also not necessary for us to create getters and setters, because you can just click on dot accent color and you will have direct access to it. So it's no need for assigning setters or getters for this class. Right, so let's jump directly into the CopyWith method. So I'm going to have it return theme data, because it's going to make a copy of a specific object which has got all of these fields. So we are returning back a theme data. The method's name is CopyWith. Let's open up the method. But inside of this parenthesis, I will need to have all of these properties listed again as named arguments. So let's list them quickly. So we will have one color as the accent color. We will have color, background color. We will have a color for the button color. And then we will have the brightness. Now, just to get some of these errors gone, I'm going to say return theme data with nothing there. So which means that at least we are returning back a value, so the CopyWith error will be gone. We will change that theme data now. So after saving, you will see that we've got color, accent color, background color, button color, and brightness. And if I hover over it, it says the parameter accent color can't have a value of null because of its type, but the implicit default value is null. So we will do some coding in here that will check for null, which means that we can actually make these nullable, which means they can contain the value of null, but we will check for it. Now, if we look at the theme data constructor there, it accepts the accent color, the background color, the button color, and the brightness. And they are all named arguments, which means that I can just start typing and it picks up the named argument. So then the user can pass in a value here, and that value that they pass in is called accent color. So we're going to use that accent color there as the value that was passed in. But if that value is null, so you remember the double question mark there to test if a value is null. So if that accent color is null, then we will return back this dot accent color. Now, what is this keyword there now? So let's go to the main method quickly, and we create a variable called data, or let's call it theme, equals theme data. Now, if I just declare theme data as this, and I do not send in any of these named arguments, it means it will get these default values, which means after creating this one line of coding there, we will actually have the theme data set as the accent color is green, the background color is light blue, the button color is blue, and the brightness as light, without passing in anything, because we've got default values there. Now, if I say theme, or let's say var theme2 equals this theme, and I put the dot, you will see that I've got access now to this CopyWith method. And I click on CopyWith, and I close it down. And you can see also, CopyWith do not really need anything there to be passed in. But if I hover over it, you can see that it's got a color as an accent color, background color, a button color, and brightness. But it's not required. What does that mean? I do not need to specify anything. Okay, so we'll get back to this part. But what I want to tell you here is, what is this keyword now? So there's an object that calls the CopyWith method. And that object's values can be referred to by using this keyword. So this new theme that we created, that one's data, that theme, this accent color, so the one that we had and we are making a copy with, that one's accent color will then be set. So what is this statement doing? It's saying the accent color that will be passed in. So if I want to pass in an accent color, I will do it like this, and I will say color.red as an example. So that accent color that was passed in there with this named argument will be set to it if it was passed in. But if it's null, it will pass in the previous accent color, and the previous accent color was actually green. So which means it will basically make it green. Right, let's do it for the rest also. So the background color also, set the background color as the background color that was passed in, but if it is null, we will set it to the background color that was the default. And the same now for the button color. I will use the button color that was passed in, but if it's null, I will use the button color of the original object. And the same for the brightness. I will use the brightness that was passed in, but if it's null, I will use the brightness that was the default value. Right, and if you save this, yours should now look like this. Right, so the last thing I want to do for this class is to just quickly create an override method so that I can see what is going on and what's been printed out and how it's been changed. So we will have string toString. To override it, it must look exactly the same, string toString. And then we need to return back some sort of a string. So because we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 different ones, let's use 1, 2, 3 quotation marks and go down and use 1, 2, 3 again. And in between, this is now a multi-line string. So remember, if you go to your string class and you scroll down, you get single quotes, you get double quotes, which is allowed, and then you get multi-line strings, which is 3 single quotes, end with 3 single quotes, or 3 double quotes and end with 3 double quotes. And everything in between is your string. So we will start off with, let's try and print out the accent color. So I'm going to say accent color and then use the $sign and get the accent color. Then on the next line, I will use the background color and display the background color. On the next line, we will have the button color and display the button color. And then we will have the brightness and display the brightness. Right, so that's my toString method. Okay, so we've created a theme data class with final fields. All of those fields in the constructor were set using named arguments, and we gave them default values. By the way, what's the name of that named argument? It's the same as what you used here, so it's accent color. Right, and then we created the CopyWith method and said, well, this CopyWith method will have parameters that we can pass in, but they're optional because we didn't add the required keyword there. And we also did not initialize them, but we said that they are nullable, which means they can contain the null value. And then we need to test for it. So when we pass in to the constructor of theme data, which has got accent color, background color, button color, and brightness, I can pass in the accent color, but if the accent color is a null value, we will replace it with the previous value, which would have been color.green. The same for the background color, the same for the button color, and the same for brightness. And then we created the toString method to print out everything nicely. So let's look at this again. We've got variable theme equals theme data. And if you hover over it, you'll see it's of type theme data. So somewhere in your Flutter application, this would have been created for you, and you can make a copy of it to change some of these properties. So how do you do it? You will basically say, go to that theme that's already there, use the CopyWith method, and now I can decide what I want to have different. If I leave it like it is, and let's print out theme 2, so you can see I've set no properties at all, and I run this, you will see that I've got the default values. I've got color.green, color.lightblue, color.blue, and brightness.light, which means I've got these default values that we set there. Right, but let's say I pass in something with the CopyWith. So let's say I want to have the background color something else. Then I will just go and say background color should be color.string. So the background color is currently blue. Let's make it red. Save it. And if I run it now, we've changed that object to be the background color of color.red. So this is a very handy method that we can use to change only some of the properties that we want. And if you go back to that website that I've shown you now on the real theme data, and you see all of those properties, it will basically be insane to expect of us to have values for every single one of those. So that's the idea behind this CopyWith. You have got some initial values that's already set and they're final, which means you cannot change them. I cannot go and say theme, let's say theme 1 or just theme dot, and you can see the only ones I've got access to is the accent color, background color, and so forth. And I can get it if I print it out. So let's say I print out what is themes accent color. I can run it and it will print it out for me. So it's color.green. But I cannot do the following. I cannot go to theme or theme 2, say the accent color should be color dot, let's say orange. I cannot do that. So if you hover over it, it will say accent color can't be used as a setter because it's final, which means these finals there at the top will create this object in such a way that you cannot actually change the values. And that's why we use something like the CopyWith. So I'm making a copy of it, and it will have all of the default values that you have there, but I can go and change only some of them. So in your Flutter app, when you're creating a mobile application and you want to just change the background color and maybe just the button color, then that's the only two you'll need to set. Color dot, let's say green, which means that you are okay with the brightness and the background color and all of those, or the accent color, you are okay with those. But the only ones you want to change is the background color and the button color. And then you can only specify those two. And that's also why it's nice that they have named arguments that's not required. And that's it for the CopyWith method. Thank you for watching the video. See you in the next one.